Hello, I'm Joanna Benfield and I'm a sex therapist and a relationship counsellor. I'm going to be looking today at men who pay for sex, and in particular I'm going to be considering how this impacts upon their relationships. So there are a wide range of reasons why men may decide to pay for sex. On the surface it may be about looking for excitement, it may be about novelty, having sex with somebody new. It may be looking for no strings attached sex or looking for the type of sex that they feel unable to have in their own relationships. And sometimes beneath these surface reasons, there are a number of emotional needs that the man is actually looking to have met through his liaisons with sex workers. And sometimes this is even at a subconscious level. So we might like to have a bit of a think about what those reasons might be. In some cases, there are men who struggle with emotional intimacy and find it very difficult to get close to a woman. So it may be very hard for them to have sex with a woman who they feel emotionally engaged with. And for men in that situation, it's actually much easier to look for a sexual relationship with somebody who they know they're only with for an hour, who they don't have to have any kind of emotional connection with. For some men, they may find that when they're in a loving relationship, it's very hard for them to have sex with their partners. There's almost a separation between love and sex in their heads. And so again, they go looking for sex outside of the relationship. For other men, they may find that their emotional needs are not being met within their main relationship. And this can often be the case when there's a young family involved. It may be that the relationship between the couple has been very strong up until that point. And actually when children are born, their needs actually take priority. And particularly for the woman, the needs of the children are coming first. And it may be that the man can feel neglected in that situation, can feel unable to get his own needs met within the relationship. And he may then turn to a sex worker in order to feel that he matters to somebody again, even for that very short time. To feel that his needs are important, to have somebody else who's interested in him and engaged with him. For men who are prolific users of sex workers, it may be the case that they are suffering from sex addiction. So this means that they're actually using sex as a way to deal with difficult emotions that they're unable to process in other ways. So it may be a way of handling anxiety or stress or anger. And some people would use drugs or alcohol to deal with these issues. Other people use sex in the same way. And so going to a prostitute is actually a very easy way, a very easy outlet for some of those difficult emotions that the person is unable to process themselves. So what impact does the use of sex workers have on relationships? This really varies from one relationship to the next, and it depends very much on the parameters that have been agreed by the couple about how their relationship works. Now, we very much live in a society where monogamy is the norm. We live in a society where culturally it's accepted that sex and love tend to occur within one relationship, and we expect one person to meet all our needs in those areas. And if those are the spoken or the unspoken rules of your relationship, then the use of sex workers actually represents a breach of trust and a breach of those rules. And the implications for that can be very, very difficult for the relationship. So for many women who find out that their partners have used sex workers, they really feel as though trust has been broken. And that's something that is very hard to be restored. It may also be that trust has been broken in other areas. For example, if men have been using sex workers on a regular basis, they may be using joint funds in order to finance that. And the woman may find that their financial resources have been seriously depleted as a result of this. It may also be the case that the man has been engaging in unsafe sexual practices that's actually put his partner's health in jeopardy. So all of these issues come into the mix when we consider the implications upon the relationship. If actually an agreement has been made within the relationship that one or other of the partners can look for sex outside the relationship, at this point the use of sex workers can be a helpful way of meeting some of those needs. Now, this may be the case if the partner has particular sexual needs that can't be met within the relationship. For example, if we take a man who enjoys cross-dressing when he has sex. If his partner actually finds that unacceptable, but is willing for him to engage in that practice with somebody else, it may be that going to see a sex worker is actually a relatively safe way of engaging in that practice. It may also be that there's a disability in the relationship and that the wife or the partner is unable to engage in sexual practices. And again, an agreement may be reached that the man can go and look for his sexual needs to be met outside of that relationship. Again, the most important point here is about negotiation. There needs to be proper communication about this, and a decision needs to be taken as to the framework within which the man will seek sex outside of the relationship. The two people need to talk about whether he can go to see the same person, whether an emotional relationship might develop with that person, whether his partner wants to know the details of what happens during these meetings, and for them both to think about the implications that their decisions about these things will have on their relationship with each other. So what should you do if you find out that your partner is using sex workers and this hasn't been part of the agreement within your relationship? I think the first thing is for the two of you to communicate clearly about what it is that your partner's been looking for in going to see those sex workers. And secondly, to talk about the implications that it has on you as a woman. For many women, finding out that your partner has seen a sex worker actually really strikes at the heart of how you see yourself as a woman. We tend to have this idea of sex workers as epitomising femininity, epitomising sexuality. And we may have a picture in our heads of our husband going to see somebody who can fulfill all of those fantasies that perhaps we feel we can't fulfill for him. If this is the case, we need to understand that what's happened here is not about our deficit in who we are as a woman. It may be about a deficit in the relationship, and we need to really address what that is. And often going to see a therapist is a really important way of being able to do this. For many women, there is understandably a great deal of anger when they find out that their partner has been to see a prostitute or an escort. And quite a natural reaction to this anger may be to try to control your partner. And that may involve doing things like restricting his use of the internet, overseeing his financial affairs, making sure that he is unable to take time out to go to places where he may encounter sex workers, or may be able to take time in his day and in his schedule to arrange a liaison with a sex worker. Whilst this degree of control is understandable to some extent, actually in the long run it's unhelpful. You need to come to a place where actually the two of you are able to rebuild trust. And a relationship that's based on control will never be based on trust. Now, this is a really difficult issue for most couples to work through, and I'd recommend that you go to see a therapist if you do find yourself in this position. There are other very useful groups out there that can support people who find themselves in a situation where they are using sex workers on a regular basis in a way that they're finding unhealthy for themselves. And they may want to go to a group such as Sex Addicts Anonymous, who can help them to process some of the things that are going on for them there, and help to support them if they've reached the decision that they would like to end their use of sex workers. So I hope that this short film gives you a little bit of an overview of why some men do turn to sex workers, about situations where that may be helpful, and situations where it may actually be very difficult for the relationship. And I hope I've also given you some pointers about what to do if you do find yourself in this situation, or you find out that your partner has been using sex workers. If this is something that you'd like to discuss, then please do feel free to book an initial consultation with me. I see clients in London and in the south of France, as well as working with clients worldwide via Skype. So thank you for your attention, and good